with something else. Well, I'm going to say let's get started. I don't particularly want to wait too much longer. So um, I was tardy with my agenda. I only had two things for the agenda, so hopefully I can get through two things without a specific agenda. And then there's lots of time for Q&A as well. Um, so the first thing I wanted to talk about, actually, I probably have three things. So let me talk about the one that's I don't have anything necessarily prepared for, but it was our events yesterday were definitely a learning curve for us. I hope that that's a once a decade or every 2 or 3 decades type of scenario, but it definitely, I think, makes us rethink some of our procedures because it was tough to get any kind of word out on things when everything was shut down. So just a couple of things to be aware of. For the last several years, I think probably 4 years, we had a contract with a company called TextWire that allowed us to send out the text announcements on school closures and those things. And so last year when we rolled out Power Announcement from PowerSchool, that has the ability to send out text announcements, and so we went away from TextWire. So we weren't, for two reasons really. One, we've learned over and over again it's very hard to maintain two databases of anything, and so the more we to keep things as accurate as possible, we really try to keep things in one place, and that was part of our issue at TextWire was they had a database of subscribers that we didn't have any control over, and so we ended up sometimes sending out texts that students had moved on from a school. A couple of situations were really kind of unfortunate ones where even a student had passed away and the parents were getting texts about that student. They weren't real thrilled about that. But we couldn't really control anything with that. Because Power Announcement is integrated inside of PowerSchool, we have complete control over that database, and we felt like that was a much better solution for us. We've learned, though, that there are some drawbacks. And the first one is parents. Really, the only contact information we have in there is PowerSchool it's a database for our students and for our parents, not for staff members. And so that's one of our gaps is we don't put staff members' cell phone numbers in there. We don't put their home addresses in there. We don't put any staff information into PowerSchool. Again, going back to that two database idea, because we could put that information in there for, say, our certified staff, because we do have information about our teachers in there, but we really don't want to go in and also add all of our classified staff in there when they have nothing to do with student schedules or attendance or anything like that. So our database for that is called Tyler Tech, and to avoid duplicating databases and trying to maintain accurate records in two places, we just left it in Tyler Tech. And the drawback of that is we don't have staff information in PowerSchool. So when it comes to like sending out a Power Announcement, unless you're like me and you have kids in our schools, you don't get that text that comes out of Power Announcement. So that's something that we need to continue to work on. There are ways that we can create a manual database and use that to send text from. But kind of our issue is we've never really collected cell phone information from our teachers or from our classified staff either. So for that to work, we really have to have cell phone numbers from teachers and from staff members inside of our Tyler Tech database. So that's kind of at least one of our major breakdowns from yesterday. Any feedback on that or thoughts on that at all? I don't know what else to say other than that, but.
One thing I use for my class is called Remind 101. It's an app. And I don't have to input any data. I just give them the number and they text a certain something and then it's automatically there. I just write one note, hit send, and I can decide when to send it. And then it just
Nice.
sends it out to everybody. So people can sign up themselves.
Good.
I don't sign them out.
Okay. And that's kind of how TextWire was, and then they can opt in and opt out themselves, and so that could be a possibility. One thing that's in the works, I guess I don't know how far in the works it is, but with our switch to the Blackboard Engage web platform, about a month ago we paid an additional $7,000 because they do an app, and they'll build those apps for us, and then parents can install those, and we have one app per school, and so that should be another way that we can start to communicate with people. But in some ways, it's almost like it's not much different than the situation we had yesterday, where people with smartphones got an email from us saying school's closed, but unless you have a smartphone, then that's not going to help out either. So I don't know. Like I said, our parents, I feel, are fairly well covered. We are sending out a reminder to parents about how to opt in for text messages through Power Announcement. We can't send those automatically to the numbers in there. They have to opt in through the parent portal. So if people are asking about that, that's at least something you could convey back. But we are, Jared and Ree and Josh are working today on getting an email out to the parents saying, just as a reminder, here's how you opt into our Power Announcements. But we like I said, we need to work on the staff side of things on that. So anything else? How did you guys hear about it? Just out of curiosity. I mean, news was down. Everything was kind of down yesterday. So just figure you went to school anyway, or so back to the old school phone tree and okay.
KID has you can text something to a number, and so I get texts when any school closes from KID news.
That'd be a good thing to put out. I hadn't heard of that one, so.
It's 590 KID. They, I just remember hearing an advertisement on the radio. It's like for school closures, text such and such number to such number, and I did that, and it opted me in for. So I mean, it's not just our school district. You
right.
know,
It's any school closure.
This morning, the Teton School District was closed and stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, that was, Local News 8 app was great. They definitely had the word out before we did on it. So anyway, like I said, yesterday was definitely an anomaly. It was hard for us even to get the Power Announcement out because normally we can do that from home, and none of us had computers online at home. So we finally had to get it in from the tech center, which thankfully we've got generator backup at the tech center so we can keep our systems online. But so Lane was here manning the show almost by himself. Lane and Josh were here making sure all that stuff was up and running. But okay, anything else on yesterday or any other outcomes? Todd was asking about whether the systems went offline at schools today. I know Wi-Fi probably had to be reset. Anything else that had to be reset at schools? Did our switches come back okay and everything else? Most of them. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah, Todd.
Today about fourth and fifth period. I'm not sure what time it is. The computers in my laptop are real slow. Even the kids, we click the mouse, and it would take 2 or 3 seconds before there was any response. Mine goes like that. I don't know what.
That's almost the same slowdown we heard about, what, a month and a half ago from Rocky Mountain too, so that's kind of interesting. Seems to be almost isolated at a specific time, which is interesting. Is it just that one time that you saw that it happened?
This morning it was fine, and then after 5th, 6th, and 7th it was
Huh.
This is the first day it's done that.
Okay.
Fourth or fifth period.
Between fourth and fifth, so.
It's like when the coaches have told me to come and watch the game film at B3, and I'm like, I don't know what time that is. It's just something about it.
I'd say 11 to 1.
Big security agent stands in
Oh. Okay. Thanks, Todd.
So Scott,
Yes.
I did have a teacher ask, so when are you going to decide about the text announcements for the staff? Because she was at school with her little camera and flashlight trying to, do work, and so she didn't know that we didn't.
I've got that number, if that helps. We text close to 67664.
Okay.
You can opt in for that.
So Peggy will put in the opt-in thing for KIDK. That, unfortunately, that's not
What is it?
my decision. It's really an HR decision on how do they collect and put that information into their database. So I'll make sure we talk about that in our leadership meeting on Monday. And really, they just have to create a process for teachers to submit their cell phone numbers and basically opt in for those text messages to receive the text messages.
She's like, I was signed up
Yeah.
last year, but I was
Yeah. Yeah, it's a totally different system. So it's really a matter of teachers, one, getting their cell phone information to HR and then saying, yes, I want to receive texts. And then we can create that database. So our side's easy. It's the HR side that's kind of a challenge. It is, but we don't. Right. So your information isn't there. So that's what I'm saying is we have to have our staff members HR, first of all, has to be ready for that, and I don't know that they are. They might be, but they have to be ready to have staff members give them their cell phone numbers and also to opt into text, and then we can use that database to send texts from. But right now, HR just doesn't. We haven't really collected that cell phone information from teachers before.
Madison
Sure.
School District has something with for their employees and for their community members where you sign up for it and it sends out an automated message where they call you on your phone and say school's canceled. I don't know if that's with the power outage, if that worked out or not.
Okay.
That would be another option.
And same thing, and we called parents. It's just really that database problem of getting the information out or accessing a different database with power announcement, which we can do that technically. We just have to know that the database is there and is accurate. So, okay. Yeah, good learning curve yesterday. Okay, so the other two things that I had they're both related, but it's back to our classroom technology funds from the state. So I just wanted to give you kind of a progress update on where we are since we met last. We had November 1st, we had a cutoff date for classroom technology applications to come in. I hope I talked about that in this meeting before, but I definitely was encouraging principals to talk to their staff members and let them know that there was an opportunity to apply for classroom technology funds. So a couple of things. First of all, one thing I've learned being here is budgets are never necessarily set. You kind of have to play a guessing game with the state on what you think they're going to be. So budgeting at $29 per ADA, which is what the state told us to budget for last spring, gives us about $300,000 worth of classroom technology. Just one caveat with that is I was at a meeting 2 weeks ago and a guy from the state used the number $22 per ADA. And I said, that's not what the letter said last spring, and he couldn't give me an answer on why there was a difference. And April's been trying to find out, and she hasn't had any response from the state in 2 weeks on if there is a $7 difference per student or not. But if there is, that equates to about $70,000 difference in that budget. So I'm a little concerned about that. But so anyway, that's the background. So I built my budget on the $29 per ADA. Again, we have 11,000 students. Trying to be at least a little bit conservative, but at 95% attendance, which I think we're about 1% higher than that. But at 95%, that gives us the $300,000 this year from Classroom Tech. So there's three main ways that we are looking to spend that. Software, I have a $132,000 budget, and I'll talk about exactly what we're looking at with that. The fortunate thing is none of that $132,000 is spent yet, so that's kind of a set aside right now. BrightLinks, so the blue, kind of bluish purple one is the budget, and then the yellow is what we've expended so far. So BrightLinks, basically replacing old projectors with BrightLinks or installing BrightLinks into classrooms that haven't had a projector. I put 68,000 there, but really what that is it's a playoff of the 132, so it's basically $200,000 between software and BrightLinks. And so far we've done just under $40,000 worth of BrightLinks this year in various schools. And then the classroom tech applications, I had $100,000 budgeted, and we've gone through, approved those at the district leadership team, and we've approved $92,000 worth of those classroom technology applications. Okay, so on the software, really there's just two things I'm looking at on the software. The first one, and I know I've talked about this before, but it's finding better software to go with our projectors. I just don't think that the software that came with the BrightLinks is well, we all know it's not that great a software. So the industry standard is definitely is Smart Notebook, and then Promethean is probably second. As far as how close of a second, I really don't know, because all this tech is since I was teaching in the classroom. But those are the kind of the two ones we've been looking at for the last several months. Smart, about a month ago, started to license their software independently of their hardware, which is great for us because it used to be if you wanted the Smart Notebook software, you had to have a smart board, and so they weren't even a possibility up until a few months ago. So looking at that, if we were to do like an entire district-wide site license of SmartBoard and include 5 years of support, that would be 55, about $77,000. So $77,000 for 5 years is really a pretty good deal. My only concern is I hate buying software that's not going to get used. And so to buy 550 licenses and only use like say 100 of them, that's what would concern me. And so I'll talk a little bit more about that, but just kind of know that the price I have up on there is like the absolute max that we would have to do. And we can scale it back from that to maybe a more realistic implementation. And then mileposts is a huge priority for me. And we used federal funds for that last year. Between Title I and Title II, we used to pay for that. The state told us this year we could not do that. I don't know if it's a political thing, which I kind of think it is, because they want districts using SchoolNet instead of mileposts. And so I think they were trying to put the hammer down on us. And so it took us, we got the invoice in July, and it took us till October to pay it, trying to figure out where to pay it from. And so just to hedge our bets for next year, I want to set aside the $55,000 it would cost for mileposts for a year, so that we don't put ourselves in a bind with that again. If we can continue to use the funding we used this year for it, then that money could flow back into, classroom applications or those kinds of things. What we did use for it, just so you know, is the state sets aside or has set aside in the past a certain amount of money for our students who are not proficient on the ISAP. And so that's the money that we used because it's really there to try to remediate. I think Milepost is a great tool to identify those students and to start creating plans to help those students. So that's the money we used, but where it's a line item, I don't know if the state will continue to fund it that way. And especially when we have a year without testing, I really don't know what they're going to do with that money. So that's why I think we need to be prudent and try to set aside some budget money so we have it in case we need it. Any questions on that big picture view of it? Okay, with the applications then, this is how the applications came out. And I'm pretty pleased with it. And I try to be upfront with this, but the last 2 years with that $300,000 a year we've received from the state, that almost exclusively went to elementary schools. It went for NEOs in 1st through 6th grades in 1-to-1, the NEOs in the middle schools. So I really wanted to focus on our high schools as our next priority because they've kind of gone without for the last 2 years, and then middle schools after that, and then back into the elementary. So Bonneville and Hillcrest both purchased a mobile computing lab, which is a huge need, especially with our testing scenario that's coming up. And so they both came out at right around $28,000. And then you can kind of see how the rest of the things that broke down. Sand Creek didn't put in at all. So that's the one I feel a little bit bad about, that Sand Creek didn't put in any applications for classroom technology because they should have been in there. So, but my plan is as we get into next spring, once some other things kind of settle out with that budget and we get have more clear answers from the state on how much we're receiving and we know what we're doing on the software side of things, then we can open that back up for more classroom applications in the spring. But for now, I think we kind of have to hold tight to that $100,000 number that we've done so far. So, questions on that at all?
Will you go read a week for those of us that have old eyes that can't see that?
Sure. So Hillcrest was $29,000. That was a mobile lab, and then also they did some software that we just approved. Bonneville was $28,000, and I can also put this into our MIB campus. You can take a look at it there. Theirs was a mobile lab. Bridgewater and Discovery, we kind of had an interesting there. They put in for iPads, and they put it in both as classroom technology as well as matching funds. So matching funds comes out of plant facilities, and that's where an outside organization like your PTO agrees to match 50-50 with whatever you put in for whatever. It's got to be a fairly permanent device. So like copiers are a big one. Computers can be purchased. A lot of them do upgrades to like their playgrounds or their baseball fields, those kinds of things. and so to try to fund as much as we could out of the matching funds, we did the match with those schools, but we matched it out of classroom technology money instead of out of the matching funds money. So in both of those situations, those schools are kicking in a portion of the money and then purchasing two sets of iPads, one set of iPad per school. Rocky Mountain was classroom responders for their smart boards. Mountain Valley, they had a huge match. They had $20,000 in donations to purchase a mobile lab, and so they were asking for about $3,500 to get all the way up to be able to do a full mobile lab. So they received $3,500 with $20,000 coming from an outside contributor to purchase that mobile lab. Ammon and Iona were both classroom printers, so all their teachers got new printers because they had very old, slow printers that weren't functioning very well with accelerated math. And then Woodland Hills, there was a combination. There were some classroom microscopes and about 6 iPad minis. It wasn't a full set of iPads, but 6 iPad minis that they requested there. And Cloverdale, at a whopping $299, asked for headphones. And that actually went to the Ed Foundation. And the Ed Foundation just said, can we please fund this out of classroom technology money? And we said we'd do that. So there's the breakdown. So we did have to say no to some applications. Some schools requested quite a bit in money, upwards of almost well over $150,000 per school. So we just nowhere near that much money in the tank this year. So, okay. So that brings me to the last thing. Hopefully, did everybody get my announcement about the Smartboard training on Tuesday? Apologize for the late heads up on that, but between Thanksgiving and school closures and everything, that's was a little bit late. So I hope you can make it. If you can't, it's okay. But the sales rep, and she actually sells both Promethean and Smart, so she doesn't have a vested interest one way or the other, but she's also a trainer. She's done training for Smart for about a decade. So she offered to come up, do a training with our tech mentors, and I thought that way we can get some firsthand experience on it. And you guys can give me a better thumbs up or thumbs down if you feel like that's the right way to go. So it's really go in for 3 hours, see what it can do, and see if you feel like, yeah, this is something that could really benefit our teachers, or no, it's not worth the expenditure. And then from that, we'll want to decide how to roll it out. I told her that I'd like to start with 125 licenses and really just look at providing it to those teachers that are excited about it and want it, rather than putting something out there for teachers that they either don't want or don't know how to use. So I'd rather start small and kind of build from the ground up. But if you guys feel like, no, we can handle doing 550 licenses and we can support our teachers in that, then we can look at that big number too. So any questions about that? Anybody missed the announcement on that?
I was wondering, I've used Smart Notebook in the past, just from experience, as we were all given it. We did have some tech people that had it first. Our biggest challenge was learning how to use it. It's just, there's just so much.
Yeah.
So I think that your plan of doing it small and then moving out is a really good idea. What my question is too is, you said that she does both Prometheum and Smart Notebook. Would she be able to answer questions then? Because I don't know anything about Prometheum, so I'd like to.
Yeah.
Those are kind of things that I would like to. So okay, well, how is it Smart Notebook?
Yeah.
Different from
I think she could give us some broad strokes. I don't think she's trained on Promethean. She sells both of them. So she's also our sales rep for the Bright Links, and so she's trained on Smart. That was kind of her career before she went into the sales thing. Am I right on that, Creighton? So she's very well versed in Smart, and she can train on Smart. But because she does sell Promethean, she could at least kind of give us some broad stroke differences between the two. Yeah.
When is that training slot?
It's Tuesday.
December.
So there's
next Tuesday.
Yeah. So is that the 10th?
Yes.
Yeah, the 10th. So there's 2 sessions, and there's a link. I posted it in the group today, and I can send that out again. But you can either sign up for 8:30 to 11:30 or 12:30 to 12:30 to 3:30. So I hope that wasn't confusing, but it's either morning or afternoon. I know some of you may be accelerated math or accelerated reading champions. If you are, you can just flip-flop, so you can do the champion training whichever time that is. Julie, what time's reading?
Reading is 12:32
Okay, so if you're a reading champ, you can go to the morning one, and if you're a math champ, you can go to the afternoon smart one. So, and if you can't go, like if you're just like, there's no way I could go, if you've got another teacher that you feel like would be excited about it and would want to learn it, feel free to invite them to go in your place and give you some feedback on it. So I'd like to get this done right before we pull the trigger and say, yeah, we're going to go ahead and purchase this. I don't think we've done the PO quite yet, have we? For the smart software? Okay, good. Yes.
How do you want us to give you feedback? Do you want us to put them on purpose or?
I'll take it however you want. Tell you what, I'll post a discussion on my big campus, and if you want to give more than just like the general discussion there, feel free to send me an email.
And you said you want to get going pretty soon. At what point do you want that feedback by? What time frame are we looking at to have it in my classroom to be able to start using it?
Yeah, I mean, really, if you could respond to that discussion, even at the end of the training, I'm sure you could take a few minutes and log on the computer and give me your thoughts about it. Then the funding's there, so it'd be a matter of, I think we could have it purchased before Christmas. Install wise, Creighton's not a fan of me right now because they like having one image for every computer in the district and be able to image every computer the same. So whenever we only do a limited number, it creates a headache for him and his guys. But we could probably be installing it maybe over Christmas or at least by January.
So you'd make it a Christmas present.
It could be a Christmas present. Yeah. Okay. Does anybody not have the link to sign up for the training? Did I miss anybody everybody saw that in my big campus? Okay. So right now, I think last I checked, which was right before 4, we had about 5 and 5 for the morning, 5 for the afternoons. That's great. If you just keep those numbers perfectly balanced like that, that's fantastic. So, okay. That's all I had. Anybody have anything else you want to ask about, Dale? Oh, state Wi-Fi?
Just wondering if you had heard anything.
Yeah. That was on my mind this morning too. So state Wi-Fi, and this is specific to the high schools, but it will have implications for the rest of the schools. So at that same meeting I was at about 2 or 3 weeks ago, which was a tech directors meeting, the guy from the state was there. We've done our paperwork, and I was really thinking we might be hearing from them in November. And we never did we, Lane? Did we really have any follow-up from the state on the Wi-Fi?
Yeah, we did a walkthrough.
Oh, we did do a walkthrough?
Mhm.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah,
Okay.
so
Okay, so we've got our walkthroughs done, so have they given you any estimates at all?
haven't heard back from Mike from Oil, so.
Okay, so they've come and they've done the walkthroughs. It's interesting, we have 3, 4, 5, we have 5 high schools, and the professional technical building has, 5 buildings? 7, so it's, and Bonneville's going to be just fun for them. So anyway, they've done the walkthrough. All I can tell you is, by their contract, it's supposed to be in by March. And I know March is still a long ways away. It'll be here probably before we know it. But and all I can say, Dale, is I apologize because I know it's got to be frustrating when our Wi-Fi is not working the way we want it to. But it's just hard for us to spend money to go in and replace something that we're going to pull out in 3 months or 2 months or 1 month. So the other outcome of that is once the state goes in and puts in their managed service in our high schools, that's going to give us about 25 access points that we can put back out into our middle schools and elementary schools. So we still have quite a bit of, discrepancy in our elementary schools. Some still only have 2 access points, others have 4 or 5. So really our first priority is to try to get 4 into every elementary school. That'll give them into 4 corners. It still isn't quite the same as having coverage in your classroom, but it should at least give more coverage than we've been able to provide before. And then from there we'll look at getting some more into our middle schools too. So that's the update on the state Wi-Fi. The only other thing I might say on that is, I don't know how many of you ever try to give feedback to our legislators. But I would definitely tell the legislators to please keep the funding for that, because if they pull funding on it, we're going to be in a worse place than we were if they hadn't done it in the first place. So I had that conversation yesterday at our legislative lunch with them, but I just, that really kind of worries me if the legislature decides we're not going to continue to fund this and they pull it, we're going to be really in a world of hurt. So, okay. Anything else from anyone? No takers? Okay. Well, hopefully you have a enjoyable Christmas, and we will, what's the date of our next meeting? Oh, Julie and Cliff, do you guys want to give an update on your tech help thing? How much longer are we going with that this year?
We're continuing till semester and discussing next semester. And we have,
So-
Dale took it. And Monday night, as teachers came in one at a time, every one of them asked if we were going to offer it again. So it was a real success this semester for those that took it. Do you guys think that's something, do you want me to ask them if that's something we should continue next semester?
I think it's really helpful to have it open because questions come up all the time. And if you can just say, well, I don't really know, but you can always get help on Mondays. And it's not very far away.
Yeah, I have several from your school come. And so, but we're thinking of offering it as a class for intermediate, beginner, intermediate, and advanced. So you guys can get multiple credits for it too. So, do you guys like that? I see a lot of heads nodding.
So you're going right up to Christmas break then, and
We're going to first semester.
then all the way through first semester.
The 6th will be the last day, right? 6th of January.
And they'll have a week to get their stuff to us. And you just have to write a 1 to 2 page paper on how you integrate the technology in your classroom to get the credit after you get your 15 hours, and they get a credit. Or of course they can come like you said and just get help. So,
Awesome.
Dale, did you like the class?
I thought it was awesome.
Thank you.
Quite a few questions answered for myself. And I think it was a great opportunity for everybody that went.
I was impressed though because they started stretching themselves. They bring in, I bought this iPad. Can you show me how to use it? How can I use it with Renaissance? How can I do this? A lot of milepost questions. We've had PowerPoint questions, Word questions. It's just a come get help with anything kind of a thing. So, okay, everybody's nodding their heads. So,
Just speaking of iPads, maybe I'll just take a quick minute and touch on that, because I know one thing that we saw quite a bit with, we didn't see as much with the classroom tech applications, but the Ed Foundation ones, there are a lot of requests for Apple TV, which is a great tool. I love Apple TV. I use it at home. We have it installed here. The key with Apple TV, though, is it has to work inside of our network security. And so we don't let personal devices see other devices on the network. And there's all kinds of reasons, but that's really where it opens up things for hacking. It opens up things for viruses, because a personal device could be anything from your phone to a full-on laptop that's on our wireless network. And that creates a big gaping hole for our network. So if somebody, say, gets an Apple TV from the Ed Foundation that's now a district purchased device, and they have a personal iPad, they're not going to see each other. And we really can't let devices see each other on the personal network. So I mean, we're continuing to kind of look at that and see what we can do to make that a usable tool, because I know the benefits in the classroom. Dale's been doing it for 2 years now, or 3. I mean, walking through his classroom, it's like that's awesome that a teacher can be untethered, walking around, showing his class things from his iPad as he's monitoring students. So it's a great tool, but we have to do it inside of the security protocols that are set up. So if both the device, like the iPad that the teacher's using, and the Apple TV are both district devices, we can make that work. But if one's personal and one's district, it doesn't. So just kind of a heads up if people are asking about that or wondering why, that's the reason why, because it just opens up too big of a hole to our network security if we let personal devices see other devices on the network. That personal one really is just kind of a pipeline out to the internet, and that's all it is. Does that make sense? Enough? Okay, awesome, thank you.
so what's our next meeting in January?
So January,
The 9th is the first Thursday back.
yep, okay, January 9th. I'll post that too. Adrian, you made it. You're going to, man. Did everybody get the sign-in sheet? I'll pass it around one more time just in case somebody missed it.
I signed up for the smart board.
That's awesome.
Do you want to hear?
Yeah. Absolutely. What's going on with this? The thing's offline. Apple TV's offline.